I forgot to plug in.
Okay. Did you forget to plug in? Okay. So this is going to be a fun show today because we're going to learn how to plug into our spirit. How did I use that one so well?
Very good.
We're going to plug in. We are going to talk about not just recall healing, but the different ways the body speaks to us where practitioners can dig deeper to help you heal from the root cause of your illness. So fasten your seatbelt. This is the first show of the year. So here we go. Hit it. Here we go. We're going to mute our mics. Here we go. Start to
The Lillian McDermott Show.
We love, we fear, bridges we burn, we make mistakes, then we live and learn. When life gets tough, and it seems like your best ain't good enough. If you're in need of hope, you know where I'll be right here, right here. And when you need a friend, you can count on me. I'll be right here, waiting for you.
This is the place you can always turn to when you need a friend. The Lillian McDermott Show. To reach out to Lillian, visit her on the web at whenyouneedafriend.com. Now let's all learn together. Here's Lillian McDermott.
Happy New Year. Happy New You. This is the first show of 2020. And with 2020, we're going to bring clarity for the spirit, the mind, and the body. Welcome. I am so excited that we are meeting each other on the air. Please know that this is a safe place where you can go to when you need a friend. It is my commitment to provide alternative ways to heal, and it is my mission to make awareness, responsibility, and truth a part of our everyday life. And I hope you, my listening, as well as my viewing friends live on Facebook at Lillian's radio show, had a little bit of a glitch before we got started. Hey, we got the New Year's glitters and all the errors out of the way right away. So today we're going to really dig deep. And this is what I want to all of you and ask of all of you, to go into that place where you don't let anyone go into. And like maybe a closet or a drawer or the trunk of your car. I think I'm talking about myself. But anyway, I want you to go there and find your soul shovel. Your soul shovel. And dig until there's only truth. Because today we're going to talk about the truth. Those secret lies, those secrets that we have that become a part of our life without us even knowing. I am excited that we're all together here today because we're going to, the 2020 is dedicated to growing our spirit. And as we grow our spirit, it will give us acknowledgement and enlighten our brains, our mind. And then because we allow that to happen, our bodies will have permission to heal. Who better than Dr. Michelle Schrader and Dr. Jennifer Gramith. Dr. Gramith is a naturopathic doctor, and Michelle is a PhD, and I will ask them to share a little bit about themselves. But there's a little terminology that kind of like made me curious, which is called recall healing. And as I was talking to Dr. Michelle, Dr. Schrader, I learned a little bit more about the work that Dr. Gramith was doing. And I am looking forward to having this discussion about how our past traumas, how things in our lives can keep us from our body healing the way it needs to heal. And since it is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge, I am so excited to have Dr. Jennifer Gramith and Dr. Michelle Schrader here on the Lillian McDermott radio show Classroom. Welcome, ladies.
Thank you so much.
Yes, it is. It is our sole purpose in life to give and receive love and knowledge. And I am excited that we're going to start today. Now, last time the two of you were together, we started with Dr. Schrader. This time, we're going to start with Dr. Gramith. And I would love for you to share a little bit about your background, because you had an allopathic background. You were in that industry, not industry, but you were in the allopathic side. And so share a little bit about what made you curious to look beyond that.
Well, I think it's, as a practitioner, it's always the story, because you typically don't get out of allopathic medicine unless something happens to you personally or to a loved one. Mm-hmm. And so with me, it was my father who was diagnosed with lymphoma cancer. So I worked in mainstream medicine, in nursing, in cardiology, oncology, internal medicine, and for a short period of time, for a colorectal specialist. Mm. And so I've seen every end of the body, literally. Mm-hmm. And, but, I was young. I was in my 20s. My father was diagnosed with lymphoma. He had tumors the size of grapefruit in his abdomen, under his arms. I worked in oncology at this time. Of course, just like everybody else, we decided to do chemotherapy and radiation because that was all that was offered to us. Mm-hmm. And even with that, they said he would not survive. Okay. They gave him less than 2 months survival rate with chemotherapy. And after a short couple of rounds of chemo, it destroyed his heart and he couldn't even tolerate that. And so I was devastated. So if that had happened to me, I would not look outside of allopathic medicine. I was desperate, and luckily for me, my medical director was into holistic medicine, which was what it was called then. Today, it's more functional, and said, Jennifer, why don't you try using some holistic methods to see if you can help your father, at least, to give him better quality of life, because he was bedridden. Mm-hmm. And he was only in his early 50s at that time. Mm. And so, I did whatever I had to do like most people. And I started taking my father to different holistic practitioners, met a man who had a little herb shop in Chattanooga, Tennessee, Jim Hanksteffer, and he gave me a bunch of herbs and vitamins I thought was nuts, but I gave it to my father. He survived past the 2-month point. He lived 6 months. Tumors had shrunk half their size. A year later, he was cancer-free. It wow. blew my mind because I'm seeing patients doing chemotherapy and radiation, and they're dying daily. And then I see my father, who was given no hope, thriving and healing. And so I had to reconcile that, and that's when I started researching. And that's why I went back to school to become a naturopath.
And not only that, you're also a certified lymphedema therapist. Right. Mm-hmm. And I do want to talk about that, because how the lymph nodes play a part in our healing as well. Is that good?
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, I got into the lymphatic system because of when you're dealing with oncology, you start seeing people. There's over 10 million Americans suffering from lymphatic diseases today. That's a lot.
10 million.
10 million suffering. And if you go to the mainstream medicine doctors, they really don't know what to do with lymphedema or lymphatic disorders. They don't even know how to, and many times, to identify it. When I was speaking in Mexico City in front of 400 medical doctors, I asked them, do you know how to identify lymphedema? And only 2 or 3 in the audience knew how to identify it. Wow. And so it's a huge problem. The lymphatic system is the structure that holds your immune system. So if you have a disease or disorder, it has to do with your immune system not functioning properly. If you don't address that, your body can't heal.
Amazing. Amazing. Something as simple as that are the lymph nodes are the first things to go when we are sick, when we have cancer or anything like that. And their functionality, the importance of them, and how we are, how they help us remain healthy, and they can also keep us sick too. So I do want to tap into that later on, because I believe that what we're going to do is we're going to look at the way the body speaks to us and what it's saying. And speaking of which, the first time I met Dr. Michelle Schrader, I learned about this terminology called recall healing. But it's more than that. So share a little bit about your background, Dr. Schrader, and how you encountered recall healing.
Sure. So I encountered it through the diagnosis of my aunt, who was diagnosed with a breast cancer. And my cousin was into integrative medicine and wanted to learn more about, what avenues could help her to understand. And so we discovered my mentor, or he discovered my mentor, Dr. Gilbert Renaud. And that in that he began to understand that nothing in the body happens by mistake. And so we, even in the way we're speaking today, it's like we think that the lymphatic system is the first to go and that it's a malfunction, but it's actually not malfunctioning. It's based on the way that we feel in our daily life. And when we have certain issues in our life, these are the things that begin to manifest in our body. And so it's specific issues, specific disease. And so when I started learning about this, I was in the middle of my master's in psychology, and sort of began to understand that psychology is amazing, and there's many amazing tools that we can learn through psychology. But oftentimes people would go for many, many years and nothing would change in their life. And so when I started learning the tools of recall healing, I began to discover, because we need practical ways of changing and looking at things, and we need to look at the big picture. And so in recall healing, we use the biology, we use life experience, we use project purpose, and we use our ancestry to help us to understand. And so it connects the head to the heart, really getting us the ability to move through our issues.
Mm-hmm. Very
so
good.
That's sort of how I came to it.
Very good. And so because I know the two of you work together. You're both in two different states. Dr. Schrader is in Texas, and Dr. Gramith is in Georgia. But the two of you work so well together. So Dr. Gramith, if you'd like to share, when someone comes to see you, what are some of the things you're looking for when it comes to like an illness such as, let's take cancer, for example, because I know that you specialize with that.
Mm-hmm.
But then I had a question. A gentleman emailed me because he has prostate issues and wants to know where that would come from as well. And I'll give you a little bit more about that. But let's start with someone who comes in. Maybe they have cancer. Maybe they don't know what they have, but they're coming to you because they've exhausted. Everybody said they're fine, that there's really nothing that they can find, and they're just prescribing medication for the symptoms. What do you do?
Yeah, I mean, I get cases like that every day. And so because my specialty is the immune system, I see a lot of cancer patients. I see a lot of Lyme disease, those mysterious illnesses that mainstream medicine just doesn't know what to do with, because they have more of a focused on a lens that's just focusing on one thing instead of looking at the whole person. And so the difference in the way that I approach a client is I'm looking at the complete person. I'm looking at the physical imbalances that they have. Of course, I'm looking at malfunction, deficiencies. I take in great consideration the emotional component. To me, it is the root of disease. And that is why just shortly after I became a naturopathic doctor, I went back to school to become a psychologist, because I knew that there was that emotional link, and patients would keep having reoccurrence of cancers and disease processes because I wasn't dealing with the emotional root. So I look for that. I always pay attention to how much of this is emotional, how much is it physical, how much is it deficiencies, because I know about the way the brain works. And, even neurologists know very little about how the brain works, but we do have an understanding that your brain doesn't care if you're happy or sad. Your brain is in a survival mode. And if it is going to help you to survive by causing inflammation in your body, it's going to create inflammation so that you stay in because it's safer for you. Let's say you had a trauma, you were raped or attacked, because every day I see new patients coming in with multiple chemical sensitivities. That's the new thing right now. Multiple chemical sensitivities. Everybody has it. Why do they have it? their brain is trying to protect them from their environment. And so it keeps them it keeps them where they're safe. It's in that survival. And so the emotional component is a huge part. So I address, the biology of the body, the imbalances. I look at the hormones in great detail, and especially with your prostate, question, the prostate issue, prostate cancer, low testosterone. You can't just look at the prostate and the testes for that. You got to look at the entire endocrine system, because the thyroid and the pituitary, all have a role in it. And that's where, there's a missing link. Doctors aren't looking at that. They're looking specifically where the problem seems to be. Yeah. But rarely is the problem there. The problem usually is somewhere else. It's, usually the root of it is emotional. And then, you start secreting hormones that throw everything out of balance. I see pituitary and problems, which is your master gland, which will affect your adrenals and your thyroid and the test. I mean, it just has this ripple effect. So you have to look at the person as a whole. And then you can find where the mystery is, and you can put the pieces of the puzzle together, and then you have success. And you don't have this patient coming back year after year, month after month with reoccurrence or new symptoms of other issues. So that's how we address it here.
So I want to say a couple of things of what, first of all, as you know, I focus on taking 100% responsibility in the classroom and in our life. But the word responsibility has a negative connotation, like blame, fault, shame. And so when someone hears the word, this is emotional, because they're having physical pain, there's an anger that comes with it. Like, it cannot possibly be emotional. I'm fine, or I've dealt with something, or, how could I be making these symptoms up? So there's that anger component where if I look at this as I'm creating it, and that I have the power to uncreate it, they're saying, if I'm creating it, then I must be crazy. But this is not what I'm talking about. So can you address that section, that portion of people that would be angry about that? And then the next question I want to ask is, how does inflammation protect the body? You mentioned the multiple chemical sensitivities and how that's protecting you and keeping you away from those things and protecting your brain. So how does inflammation, and then let's get over the fact that many people are angry to hear that disease is an emotional component.
Right. And, when you say emotional, you mean conscious awareness.
Correct.
So when I say emotional, I'm talking about the physical reaction of the brain.
Correct.
Okay, so it's neurological.
Two different things that we lump into one. Yeah,
totally different things. And that's why you have a whole field of psychoneuroimmunology. Okay, because these are not things and processes that you're consciously aware of, that you have control over by the way that you are, thinking. So even though your thought process does impact them, okay? So when I say emotional, I'm talking about the physical chemicals that are released typically through the endocrine system from the brain.
Okay.
And so not emotional, like, you're angry and, that's, you brought this on yourself.
Correct.
I know me do I mean that.
Correct.
The way that inflammation protects you, let's say, for instance, I had a case just last week, young girl who has severe pain. She now has developed, she's 20 years old, she's developed endometriosis, cystitis, all things that are created from inflammation. Okay, doctors are saying, well, you're probably going to have a hysterectomy. You're probably going to do this. It should not be. But what happened to this young girl is that she was attacked years ago. She was sexually abused and attacked. So for her brain to keep her safe from another attack, it creates inflammation in areas that will keep her away and from going outside in public and putting herself at risk.
Interesting.
So that's how it affects you. So, sometimes, and Dr. Schrader can speak more
I wanted to ask, do you have anything you'd like to add, Dr. Schrader?
Sure, I would love to, and it's interesting because this very example about endometriosis, so it's specific illness is specific emotion. So the idea of sexual abuse, oftentimes we get a child will get removed from the house. Well, endometriosis is the conflict is my house is somewhere else. And so I'm living in this house, but I belong to this family and I'm not being raised by that. And so it starts out very young, and then sort of in life experiences will get mirrored on all throughout their life, the same kinds of issues over and over again. So it's interesting how specifically it does manifest.
So, but what if someone wasn't physically taken from their home and they had a happy childhood and they have endometriosis?
So we still would look at the underlying conflict as my home is somewhere else. So for instance, maybe this child grows up in a happy household, but mom's home is in England and she longs to go back to England. Well, the child becomes the biological solution to the unfinished business. For mom, England is home, not here in the States. So she suffers. This child carries that suffering, and then it can manifest in an endometriosis. So that's why we have to look at what's gone on with our parents and our grandparents and our great-grandparents and what has gone on in my life. So we have to look and we ask the questions because we don't know. And so I might have an understanding about what the underlying conflict might be, but then I can ask, hey, what is your experience? You know, what's going on in your life? Uterus is about the house. So we look at these kinds of things.
Interesting. Okay. So Dr. Gramith, now you look at you do the testing that is necessary. Are there particular testing that you feel is there a particular test that you feel is a good test that gives you overall picture of the individual?
Yeah, so initially what we start with is biofeedback testing, and I use the Zyto technology, the Elite, because it allows me to go very, very deep in looking at all the systems of the body, even the emotional health of the person. Now, that will give me about 70% of the answers that I'm looking for. And then what I will do, if I see suspicion in areas, I will follow with blood work or other types of testing to confirm that information. Because my mentor, Dr. Cowden, always says, you know, if you get one yes, you're probably, you know, pretty 50% that you're right. You get two yeses, you're pretty dead on. If you get three, you know, you're on the right track. And so I follow that philosophy, and I make sure that I am dealing with the root problem and not just a symptom of the problem. And that's why I think that, you know, we've been so successful. And that is when Dr. Schrader and I met, that, you know, the recall healing portion of it and the emotional portion, it was like the missing link for me. It's like, oh yes, I need those tools, because I have a background trained in traditional psychology, but, you know, a lot of people aren't open to that, and they don't want to relive the trauma again. They don't want to talk about it. And then some people who sit and talk about it too much get stuck in that rut of staying a victim. Mm-hmm. And so the tools that I learned from Dr. Schrader was just remarkable in helping people, just empowering them to become their own doctor and heal themselves. I could tell you case after case after case of patients coming in with chronic pain and with Lyme disease and with cancer and so many symptoms, and then doing emotional work, you know, 70 to 100% of their symptoms resolved. I mean, that's huge. There's no medication, there's no supplement that can do that.
Well, okay, so let's pick Lyme. Let's pick Lyme as an example, because we do have some members in the classroom that have Lyme's, and we talked about Lyme disease last time we were together, and that was the question, was like, how can it be emotional when I got bitten by a tick? How can it be emotional when I'm feeling so many symptoms that medications won't heal? And I believe Dr. Schrader had mentioned that some people have Lyme's, but without the side effects. So, Dr. Schrader, when someone comes to you with Lyme, what is the underlying condition that you're looking for, or do you just start a process?
Well, I build the picture, I build the puzzle, I get some background information, I have clients look at, or address their history, put down things that have been traumatic and things like that. If a person has been diagnosed with Lyme, then we go to work to sort of look for what are those things. And so a person will never get sick if they don't have the conflict. And so this is what we will say. So that's why some people will carry a virus and never have any kind of experiences, but maybe that's what they carry from above them. And so with Lyme, we would look at different separations and many separations, how it's hard to say goodbye. We would look at, how a person has felt disconnected from their family clan. So there's a number of different conflicts that we would look for, and then an underlying devaluation and feeling just really yuck about themselves. And so over and over and over again, and we find that many times people with Lyme, they don't have any connection with their family, so you become their family and they want to connect with you. And so they'll stay and they'll want to know everything, and they'll ask you 100 questions because it's the contact with their family, your mom, your dad, for them. And so to help them to understand and be aware of it can release the issues in the body. It can release a person from those feeling a constant state of sickness.
Okay, so when you said you, and I want to clarify the you. So when someone has Lyme, or in your experience,
Yes.
we're not saying everybody, we're saying potentially. Okay.
Of course.
If someone comes to you and they say they have Lyme's, or Lyme disease, you are looking at that detachment, where they have detached from their clan, where they have, so once
or where they have been pushed away from,
or when they've been pushed away from their clan,
for sure.
and they're okay. So at that moment, you identify that perhaps maybe the two of you talk. Maybe a moment, a situation has been revealed, could be a potential block. How do you work with them to resolve that block once they become aware?
So again, it's a process, but when you can say, okay, this happened at a certain, because it's very specific even in terms of age. So a person will be diagnosed in relationship to many other events in their life. So I help them to unpack the bag, so to speak, where, this happened at this age. What else? How did you feel about that? Because it's not just the story. Dr. Jennifer was speaking about how a person will tell the story over and over again.
Yes.
Well, we need to help a person to dive in. How do you feel about what happened? What happened? What were the circumstances? Where were you left in that way? And so, and then what else? What else? What else? And then I help them to process it. Just by feeling honored and validated, it's 80% is just about bringing it into the awareness. And then 20% of what you do with it. I teach letting go exercises, some tapping, we call it the butterfly hug. Even though I felt so disconnected from my family clan, I love and accept myself. And I forgive myself from the bottom of my heart because I was doing the best I could with the resources that I had. And I no longer have to carry this. I don't have to die for this. I can choose to let this go so that I can live my life to the fullest. And a big, deep cleansing breath and a release. We use the Ho'oponopono. So we use many different things to help a person through the process. So because it's really about changing the perspective. When we change the perspective, we change the reality. We give ourselves the choice on how we're going to receive this information. It doesn't change the circumstances, it happened, but we say it's never too late to have a happy childhood. Most of the time, our parents were really trying to do the best that they could with the resources that they had. It wasn't really their intention to hurt us, but it happens. Sometimes it is the intention, and we have to look at that too, because as a little girl, a little boy, we get stunted in those past traumas. And so our goal is to grow ourselves up into adult men and women to be able to handle things and to speak it as an adult and not as a child anymore.
Interesting. Okay. So Dr. Graham, thank you so much for that, because again, I understand that the emotional and the physical, I understand the differences in creating this with the thoughts. I mean, I know Dr. Bruce Lipton shared in the classroom and throughout the world that we have 70,000 thoughts a day. Of those 70,000 thoughts, about 90% of them are repetitive, and also 80% of them are negative. So we are feeding ourselves that perspective, and we don't even realize we're doing it. Subconsciously, we are doing it to ourselves. So let's say someone goes to see Dr. Schrader, Dr. Gramith, and they come back and say, it's not emotional, it's not emotional, it's not emotional, this is physical. What do you do at this time?
Well, typically, when they come to me to see me, they're coming for the physical component. The emotional part of it's a big surprise to them. They're like, what? I got to deal with my emotions? And so I get that a lot. And, so there's several ways that I can test them to see how much of the disease process is emotional. And if that's
it might take you some convincing, huh? Does it take you some
convincing? It's typically just, I can use muscle testing. I can use biofeedback. Their body will tell them, and then they're kind of shocked how much it plays. But just like Dr. Schrader said, when I test an individual, I'll see multiple spirochetes associated with Lyme disease, some of the co-infections. Majority of people have been exposed to Lyme. Okay, so most of us have been exposed because it's not just from ticks, it's from sand fleas, mosquitoes. You can get a lot of these co-infections from different sources that cause some of the same devastating symptoms as Lyme, the Borrelia. And so you'll see that with blood work, and you'll see that with biofeedback testing. But why don't they come down with the symptoms? Because they don't have the emotional conflict. So you ask, well, what if they have endometriosis and they don't have, these issues? The issues are there. Many, many times, it may not be in their conscious awareness. It may be an issue that they're carrying from mama, our grandparents, that's passed down, but the issue is there. I've never seen it not there. The conflict is always there. And so you do them a disservice if you just allow them to tell you, no, there's no emotional component to it. There's always, always, always.
Do you help them anyway? Like if they come to you and say, not willing to look at the emotional, that doesn't exist. I've had so many people as a life coach. I understand that the majority, the root of illness, and at this point, whenever my knee hurts, my back hurts, anything, I'm like, okay, what's going on with my mom? What's going on with my sister? What's going on with my brother? What's going on with my husband? So it's like, that's my first, but the physical is so painful that I can focus on that and say, oh, it's just that I twisted my ankle. Is it ever a twisted ankle, Dr. Schrader?
It is never, just never.
It's never about a twisted ankle.
And Gilbert would say, it never happens by mistake. There's always a component that we have to look at. And it's just, it's ambiguous. So that's the other thing. What Dr. Gramith was sharing is that it's not obvious. If it were obvious, this is the reason why traditional psychotherapy doesn't always work for this way, because you go into the psychotherapist and you talk about what you think is the issue. But when you use the body, that tells us something that you haven't been paying attention to, or that it's been you're secretly suffering about that. Like the pebble in your shoe. It's there, you sort of ignore it, you keep going, before you know it, there's a little blister. Yeah. And so if we don't pay attention to that secret suffering, that's when our body will say, hey, this is too much for you to look at. And if it's over and over and over again, then it's our body really will take over at that moment. So it's never out of the blue. It's never by mistake. And it's very specific to what you experience, what you feel, and what's going on in your life.
You know, Shakira got it right. Hips don't lie, right? And so neither does the body. So the body will always show you the truth, but we're not always ready to heal or hear the truth. And so, Dr. Gramith, if someone comes to you and does not want to heal the emotional aspect of dis-ease, what do you do?
I start with the physical and help with their symptoms and build a relationship, always explaining to them to get full recovery. You're going to have to deal eventually with the emotional, but we will work on these other symptoms to give you relief until you are ready to do so. Now, if, we get to the point and a person is still, no way, I'm not dealing with emotion, then, I just don't, I have a busy practice. I work with practitioners all over the world. They're just not going to be someone that I'm going to invest a whole lot more time in. I will do everything that I can, but you've got to be open-minded and willing to deal with that. And we have such amazing tools to help them to where they don't have to do traditional psychotherapy. I understand that. I understand not wanting to have to talk about it, to relive it. But we have modalities like recall healing and emotion code and EBOTs that helps them to get through that. And now you hear more and more about retrain your brain, Annie Hopper. And because we're understanding more and more about the what Bruce Lipton has been talking about for years, and how our thought process, and if you start thinking about what you're thinking about, you start realizing, hey, I am a little bit negative, because when I was doing Annie Hopper's Retrain Your Brain program, I was testing it out for some Lyme patients of mine. I was amazed at how negative, because I think of myself as, I'm so positive, very optimistic. I could not believe how negative I was.
Wow.
And so I started to retrain my brain, and I was experiencing some inflammation in my feet. When I'd get up in the middle of the night, I felt like I was 80 years old, walk into the bathroom, and I'm like, I'm not having this. I'm only in my 40s. And I stopped, and I would say, stop, 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 just like she did the butterfly. That's retraining your brain. Instead of me thinking, I'm 80 years old, I feel like I'm 80 years old, walking to the bathroom, I can't do anything. I said, nope, I'm not going to have it. Stop, stop, stop. In the past, I would respond with pain and inflammation, but today I choose a new path. And in just a couple of sessions, the pain went away. I mean, It's remarkable.
And grounding. You guys have been grounding, huh?
Yes,
absolutely.
Love it. Yeah.
For sure.
Okay, so I want to, because I do want to acknowledge my sponsors, because this is a place where we take ownership. And the ownership that we take is an honest look at ourselves. All these secret lies that we're afraid of being exposed, or whatever it is, we're just lying to ourselves. We're just lying. And if we can just bring that out and be proud of being able to see ourselves, that 2020, that the 2020 vision that I would love to create for this year, is that we truly see ourselves regardless of how perfect we think we want the world to think we are. But just be real with ourselves. And where you start this journey when it comes to the classroom is at whenyouneedafriend.com. So I want to encourage you all to become a subscriber. So, because you never know, today we had a difficult time getting on Facebook, and tomorrow it might be that we're not allowed to do this in the future. So we don't know what we don't know, but we do need to come together as a community so that we can heal as naturally as possible. So become a subscriber. And while you're there, follow me, click onto all the social media, my YouTube channel, subscribe there, follow, like my social media. That way we're always connected, so that you know who is going to be the teacher in the classroom. And so I want to encourage you to do that. While you're there, check out my sponsors page, and sponsors like Liberty Health Share, Keep Me Safe Organics from head to toe, natural, all organic, non-synthetic, beautiful cleansers. Look at those two beautiful, radiant women that are on Keep Me Safe Organics, as well as Lily Rose. And I am excited about that too. And First Alternative Care, where you can help the entire family with telemedicine. That's not just family practice, but also dermatology and behavioral health counseling for the entire family for $35 a month. And that's unlimited. And Dr. Stephen Grable, who has been a teacher on the show in the classroom and they're also, Dr. Stephen Grable is also ACIM graduate. And so this is, he is complimentary, functional, integrative doctor in Jacksonville, Florida, worth the drive, as well as the pharmacy in Merritt Island, where you can get holistic alternative compounds. And just mention my name on all of these and just click on, it'll take you to the link, Live Longer Medical, who's also doing this in the Brevard County area in the Atlantic. You go to the website again, click on all these sponsors. Ground Therapy, and that was one of the things that we were talking about earlier, that releases inflammation in the body, but we also need to continue doing the work, because it will come back if you're not doing the total approach. And so finally, I want to encourage you to become an enrolled student. What does an enrolled student do? They can become a sponsor of the classroom. You can either give your talent, your time, or your treasure. We want to grow this year 10 times as much as we've grown in the past. So be a part of this by helping us in any way you possibly can. So today we have Dr. Gramith, who you can find her at rightwayhealthandwellness.com. That's Right Way Health and Wellness. You can find her on Facebook as well. Dr. Schrader is on soultreetransformations.com, so that if they say something that kind of triggers a thought, like makes you aware, maybe the hair in the back of your head kind of rises, maybe it's something that you should explore. Many of us are very critical about a new thought process or something that's been even documented through science. Some of us can become critical about that. But instead of critical, I would love for you to be curious, to consider, how could this help my body? And so with that in mind, I want to encourage you to be curious. Take out that soul shovel and dig until there's only truth. Is there anything you'd like to add, Dr. Schrader, to anything that's been said, or anything that you'd like to add?
Sure. Just there was a train of thought that was going, but I don't recall it exactly. But it really is about that idea of taking a look, and also I have two websites, but the Recall Healing USA, Recall Healing in general. These are where you can find Recall Healing, but Soul Tree Transformations is sort of the link and the bridge for that. Okay. But in any case, it was this idea of when we have that understanding, and when a person is, what you were saying about how we have a resistance, well, this is a natural function of our brain to help us, because all of these behaviors and manifestations that we have had in the past, they've served to keep us alive, because we're still here today. And so it's like to understand that, thank you for that manifestation, for that addiction, for this illness, because it served to keep me alive. Now that's not working as well as it once did.
I like that.
And let's begin to reframe it. And the more, and much of the neuroscience that's out there, and this was my thought, that the more that we say the things in that way, stopping those old patterns of not saying, oh, I used to tell myself, oh, you're such a fat pig, you're so disgusting. I never say those things to myself anymore, because I really do love myself, and I'm not perfect. I'm a work in progress. It's progress, not perfection. So it's like we learn this compassion for ourselves, and the more that we reframe things, the more that it will build those new neural pathways, and then the old ones will die off. And before we know it, we really are a different human being.
You know, I love your honesty. You know, a lot of people that have mastered a certain skill may not go in front of a worldwide audience and say, I called myself a fat pig.
Right?
You know what I'm saying?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And so thank you so much for your honesty. How many times do we call ourselves stupid? How many times do we call ourselves, oh yeah, like not even embrace, instead of feedback, they call it criticism. You know, it's like, okay, this is something that is being presented. And I love how you say that resistance. When the body is in resistance, should we lean towards that resistance?
Absolutely.
How do you suggest we do that?
So we embrace it. Thank you for showing up. You really served me well for a really long time. And now I'm looking for other avenues, because if the body, the brain feels like it's not going to survive, this is when resistance will come up. These are the ways that I stayed alive. Insomnia. Oh, let me make sure that, that the trauma that happened at nighttime doesn't happen anymore. So I better be alert and stay alive. Okay, I'm safe. I can grow up. I'm in a safe environment. And so we're really literally retraining our brain to be able to have a new way of being in the world.
Yes. Okay. So Dr. Gramith, is there anything you'd like to add to that?
Yeah, I just want to give a little bit of encouragement, because I know, what I see is what people struggle with is that they're in a position where they're so overwhelmed with all the information that we're giving them as practitioners. You have hormone imbalance, you have Lyme disease, you have this. It looks, it's as if they're looking up to this huge mountain and there's like, no way can I do all of this. But how do you propel yourself up a mountain? You do it one step at a time.
Yep.
And then you will start to achieve a momentum, and you will get there faster and faster. And then before you even know it, you're going to be at the top of that mountain looking down, and you have conquered that mountain.
I love it.
But if you look at it and you just look up to where you need to be, today, you're just going, you're setting yourself up for failure. And that's the way we look at our health, and that's the way we look in business. So you just have to have a plan, and you got to start with those little bitty baby steps. And before you know it, like I said, you will conquer that mountain. Everyone can do it. We all have the potential in our body to heal. It is not impossible for anyone to heal. And so never, ever, ever allow someone to rob you of that hope, because I have seen so many different cases where everybody else said there's no way that they're going to survive. There's no way. And yet they did.
Yes.
And so don't buy into that lie, and don't become overwhelmed. You can do it step by step.
Yeah. I remember I was invited to go on a hiking trip for the first time in my life. And it was, if I would have started at the top of the mountain, I would have never done this. So the first thing I did was search shoes. What kind of hiking boots am I going to use for this trip? So that's how I started my journey, was buying the hiking boots. I wasn't at the top of the mountain. And that is exactly what I wrote about during my whole journey. It was like, taking that one step and another step. And I've achieved many things because I refuse. Yes, I had a goal, and that goal is important, but it also requires for us to have a plan. And it's wonderful to have doctors like you that will help hold our hand during that plan, because, the emotional component, again, doesn't seem as doable, because we have been walking around ignoring that is even in existence. And so we bring it around like a sack of potatoes everywhere we go. And we wonder why we're so tired, right?
Right.
So with that in mind, I want to honor, let's see, all the people that are, all you teachers' pet, all of you who are in the classroom today. I will reach out after the class and we will look, because we'll have some questions. If you have any questions, type in a queue and we'll ask the question live. And so I want to thank you all for sharing where you're from and all that's happening, that where you're from and that you're watching. And I'm really excited about this. But I'll address and I'll acknowledge you after the classroom. But I did receive an email from a gentleman, and I really would love to ask this question because, you know, we're talking about things in our past. So if someone were to present, if a guy would present to you with someone who has an enlarged prostate, someone who now is so enlarged that they're retaining, they cannot void anymore, and they have low testosterone, what would be some of the things, Dr. Gramith, that you would start with that individual? And they don't have cancer.
Okay, so if they just have an enlarged prostate and low testosterone, I'm going to look at the entire endocrine system too, and I'm going to look at hormone imbalances. Of course, you know, I'll let Dr. Schrader speak into the emotional issues with the prostate, but you can't, you know, emotional issues are the root of the problem and you're going to get to them, but you still have to address the physical symptoms of the body.
Sure.
The physical symptoms are just your flags. If you follow the physical symptoms, you can actually put the emotional, you know, story together. It's beautiful. But so I would definitely look at thyroid. I would look at parathyroid gland, your pituitary, which is your master gland, the adrenals, you know, elsewhere. I'd look at the entire endocrine system. And then what causes the endocrine system to malfunction is typically heavy metals, environmental toxins. So look at his history of exposures to environmental toxins that are endocrine disruptors. I see endocrine disorders in children. And when I should only see it in, you know, 40, 50-year-olds, years of accumulation, you're seeing it. And I know probably I'm going to have a lot of input, but I believe personally that part of that story is due to the amounts of vaccines that we are giving children at birth. Mm-hmm. And, you know, that is full of heavy metals. Even if they remove the thimerosal, it's aluminum based. And the heavy metal blocks your endocrine system like that. Mm-hmm. And so you're going to see more and more. So you want to look at what is the cause environmentally that is causing the low testosterone, and a lot of heavy metals and industrial chemicals will be the cause. So look at their health history and what they've had exposures to. Mm-hmm.
Very good.
That's what I would do. And then I would look at the emotional component.
Okay. So then Dr. Schrader, what would you say to that individual that may or may not be listening right now?
Sure. Well, in terms of the prostate mm-hmm. is known as the guardian. Okay. And so this is related to my partner or the sexual partner. Obviously I don't have prostate, but it's related to the sexual partner. But there's several conflicts. Okay. And so the business of the prostate is to cleanse the genitalia. So I would ask a person, hey, where have you felt dirty or devalued about your sexuality? What's going on in your relationship with your wife? What's going on with your partner? What's going on with your grandchildren and your children? Because it's a worry for the descendants as well. I find many, many people that there has been an abortion in the past. So I helped a man, and it seems like, oh, counterintuitive. Oh gosh, they didn't have the abortion. Well, it's their child. So it's about biology. And so I would get them to look at these things. As an example, I had a man who had recently retired, and when he retired, his wife was sort of nagging him, don't eat this, don't eat that. Well, the prostate responded to guard him from his partner. It's real, imaginary, symbolic, and virtual. At half his age, his daughter, which was a stepdaughter, but he was very worried for her. She was being stalked, and there was a really big issue around that. at half his age, it was related to the loss of his virginity. He was on a football team in college. The guy said, hey, let's go to a party tonight, get dressed up. Well, he didn't realize that they were taking him to lose his virginity. And there was a woman that all of the people.
Okay, let's continue this after the after party for the teacher's pet who will remain. Our time is up. Thank you so much, ladies, for sharing your wisdom, your kindness, your love with all of us. I want to encourage all of you to check out their sites. The information is below. Please remember, we'll be right here waiting for you worldwide at whenyouneedafriend.com. This is Lillian McDermott, Dr. Schrader, Dr. Gramith, wishing you love, peace, joy, and unexpected abundance. Make it the best day ever. I was stuck in the story.
The opinions and advice expressed on the Lillian McDermott radio show are intended for the individual callers and guests on the program and are presented to our wider audience solely for general educational purposes. Please act responsibly and consult personally with your own medical, psychological, or nutritional expert before taking any steps to improve your life.
So sorry about that. So the time has flown, and because this is such exciting information. And the reason why it's exciting is that it's the least expensive to fix. It's the least expensive to say, gosh, I can stop this behavior. I can become aware of this behavior. So I apologize for the music and my lack of, but can you finish your story?
Yes, absolutely. Yeah. I tried to squeeze it in that one little minute, but so he went out to the party and realized that it was one woman going to be with all 15 guys on the football team. And he wasn't the first and he wasn't the last. And this is the way he lost his virginity. So when he talked about her, he never had spoken about this story to anyone. He felt so deeply ashamed and soiled, disgusted by his behavior that he couldn't say no. And he called her a whore. And so I helped him to process and understand that we did an imagery and went back into the room and actually had a talk. And she actually told him that he, in this imagery, told him that she had been sexually abused, because no woman is going to do that just out of the blue. Mm-hmm. And so he was able to sort of process it, give forgiveness to himself for what happened, forgive her, and grow himself up. And then the prostate went down. It was really like that. It's so fun when it happens like that. So that was
when
the
you
story.
Say like that, I mean, was it
over the next 2 weeks, his prostate was back to normal and he was urinating fine and everything was all, the numbers had gone down. They were really fearful of him having a more severe cancer. It had already, been diagnosed as cancer. Oh. So within, a couple of weeks, it was back to normal. So it was, it's profound when you see it like that.
See, this is the part that that I work with, and perhaps maybe I should just, and I'm not working with them in the level that you're working with, but making them aware, because I don't try to do those things. I point them in different directions, right? To become aware, now it's time to go here. To become aware, now it's time to go there. So it's the creating that awareness that seems the hard sell, that seems the like Dr. Gramith said, and I apologize first, like I was trying to think so fast. Like Dr. Gramith said, there's so much I can do. But at this point, if they refuse to work on the emotional component, even if you need physically, there are symptoms that need to be treated. If someone refuses, do you see that reoccurrence of cancer, reoccurrence of Lyme, reoccurrence of whatever it is? Dr. Gramith.
Yes, yeah, you're going to see it just reoccur and reoccur. The prostate case, I had a very similar case. He developed prostate cancer after the loss of his son, died from overdose. And so he felt responsible that he couldn't save his child and developed prostate cancer himself. And so having to deal with that emotional component. Like she said, it shrunk the prostate in weeks. I've seen it do things like that overnight. Swelling in the leg go down after months of, dealing with the lymphedema.
Wow.
So it can be instant, or it can take a process, depending on what that person has went through and the trauma and how their body is going to heal it. Everybody's so different, but it always plays an essential role in it. I had a patient years ago that was having boils break out on her legs and genitals, and big, huge boils. And we purified her blood. They'd go away, and then they'd come right back. And it just was this vicious cycle. And so finally, I said, well, let's do some emotional work. Maybe it's emotional. And that's what it kept showing. It was still unresolved emotions. And when we tested the emotions, it was abandonment was the biggest emotion. And I said, well, were you ever abandoned? And she said, no, but I abandoned my children. When I was in the service, I had an affair. And so there goes the cyst and the boils on the genitals and on the legs, because it was on the inner thighs. And I was so ashamed. She said, I've reconciled with my children, because this was years later. I've reconciled with them, but she never truly forgave herself of the mistake that she had made. But as soon as it came to the forefront of her mind, and she was aware of that, and she went through a process of asking and forgiving herself and loving herself again, they went away and they never came back.
Wow.
So cool.
I mean,
And Dr. Schrader, do you see that? I mean, when you create the clarity, once you figure out that that is the root cause, could there be other root causes? Could there be, just like there are multi-levels to an illness, could there be multi-levels? Like, okay, you peeled this onion and you took care of the sexuality or the loss of virginity. But then you look again, and there's still like something not quite there. Then you look deeper and then deeper. Do you find that there are multiple reasons why people need to forgive themselves?
Oh, for sure. But typically, if we have the physical manifestation and we haven't hit, like, if you hit the root cause, it will go away. If you haven't hit the whole picture, then it will sort of linger, or a certain percentage will go away. Then we'll ask, what else? That's where you use the whole timeline, the project purpose, which is this 18 months before a child is born, the pregnancy, the first year of life, all of it, to help us to understand, what does this child carry? What does this person, this human being carry? And who are they in link with related to their birth order number? So because maybe there's a story from above that this person lines up with, that it's manifesting because of this whole picture. And that's why we have to look at all of these levels to get the whole picture. That gives us the root cause.
Okay, so you had mentioned the butterfly,
Mm-hmm.
and the words that you said, are those words that we should all say, or these come from your heart, or is there like a prescription for, like stopping, and then reminding yourself that you have forgiven yourself? You have to forgive yourself over and over again, or it's a one and done?
Well, forgiveness is a process for sure.
Okay.
And so sometimes it's easier to forgive ourselves, but when there's the thing and the consequence of the thing. So sometimes, like this woman, and the fact that she was out of touch with her kids, and skin is about connection. And then the boils and cysts is how I'm angry with myself, how like I'm erupting with this
Gosh.
unforgiveness. And so it really gives you the bigger understanding. We have letting go exercises. This is one of them. We use the principles of tapping.
Can we go over that again? So if somebody
Sure,
wants
absolutely. So we would say something like, even though, and then we plug in the situation that happened.
Okay.
And when we tap, we're anchoring what we say into our body. So even though I felt so sad or so hurt or so angry about this situation, and then you would add, I love and accept myself. So you're reframing that judgment and guilty and all of that. I forgive myself from the bottom of my heart because I really was doing the best I could with the resources that I had. And I have clients that will tell me, oh, but in that, I really wasn't. And I said, in that moment, that's exactly what you could do. That's it. No less, no more, or that's what would have happened. So in that moment, that's what you would have done. So I forgive myself from the bottom of my heart because I'm doing the best I can with the resources that I have. And I don't have to carry this in my body or as boils, as a punishment, as guilt or devaluation. I choose to let this go so that I can live my life to the fullest. And a deep cleansing breath and release. So when you're releasing, you're literally releasing that old energy, that stagnation of unloving. And I find, because we've said this so many times about how hard we are on ourselves and how much judgment and criticism, when we find that we're in that place, we really need more love. And so we can look at that. I had a girlfriend in graduate school that told me, oh, honey, you need to love yourself more. Look at that little girl on your shoulder. That's the critical little girl. Look to her and say, oh, little Michelle, you just need more love right now. So let me give you some more love and honor. You really are doing the best you can. We didn't get this way overnight. And so it takes time to change the way that we operate and behave in the world.
Very nice, very nice. Okay, so I want to encourage all of you to share this video with anyone, or below, make a comment, ask a question, whatever it is. I'll get them to the right people, but just know that we are a community. You are safe here, and also, again, I want to say that there are going to be people that this is not going to resonate with them. That's okay. You're not ready. Just know you're not ready. But when you are ready, it will make sense. And there is enough science to back it up. So I would like to allow, before we go, if there's anything you'd like to add, Dr. Gramith, with what we talked about today, or maybe something that we didn't say, or something that you would like to add.
Well, I'm not big on resolutions, and since it's the new year, I don't really do resolutions, but I have made.
We do commitments here, we do commitments.
Yes, a promise and a commitment to myself.
Okay.
To become a better me every single day, and to appreciate who I am at this moment right now. And I encourage people to do that as well, because you don't really need to focus on what your husband's not doing for you, or what your children's, how they're behaving. Focus on you. What makes you great? Because we all have that greatness in us. And so if we are constantly, and just, even though Dr. Schrader says, it takes time, know this, that every little step that you do, you're a better person. You don't have to wait 6 months before you feel it. You feel it immediately. And so you become better and better and better and better and better, and until you are just total greatness in my mind. And so that is my goal, and that's my commitment in 2020 and the rest of my life, is just to continue to improve. Because if you stop working on improving yourself, you stop growing and you start to die. So if you don't want to die and you want to continue to grow and to live, you got to move, and you got to have a consistent momentum, because consistency over time equals success. And that's all you have to remember in any aspect of your life.
I love that.
Consistency over time equals success.
Yes, and I just realized that one of the things that I wanted to talk about today was the lymphatic system. So will you return and we can do a class just on the lymphatic
Sure.
system?
Yes, I
Okay,
would
great.
love that.
Thank you. Thank you. This is just so fascinating to me. So, although I wanted to talk about the physical component and how the lymphatic system is so important, there is that spiritual aspect that we just need to nail it. We just need to nail it within us that this is something I deserve to look into. I deserve. So thank you very much. Okay, so Dr. Schrader, is there anything you would like to add? Maybe it's something that you'd like to say that we didn't discuss and you'd like to leave.
I think that we did a great job of sort of covering some basics, and just in terms of what Dr. Gramith said, it's really, I had a mentor early on, and she said bettering my best, and so it sort of reminds me of that every day I better my best. And am I being kind and loving to myself? Am I being kind and loving in the world? And so it begins with that compassion and that love and really fostering that. When we become more compassionate, less judgmental of ourselves, we really do learn how to love ourselves at a deeper level, and our body will transform because of that. And so our brain won't be in a fight mode and making sure downloading all these diseases and illnesses. It will be more at peace with better functioning. And so this is the way. And I just so appreciate what you're doing in the world, and to be a part of your show and the classroom and your team, so thank you so much for having me.
Well, it's my pleasure. Like I said, and I had mentioned this to you last year when we saw each other. Can you believe it? It's last year. That I do want to dedicate 2020 to that clarity of spirit, of clarity of that awareness of how emotional IQ or emotional health is as important, or if not more important than the physical. Although it all, it all blends together. It all meshes together. Our body is perfect.
It is.
And I am always amazed. I don't know why I am still amazed after all these years of being in the classroom that we're meant to heal. Because you have so many people say, okay, well, if I'm meant to heal, then why does this child have cancer? Why was this person born with? Why? And I know that in Dr. Schrader's work, you address all those concerns, and it's amazing. And so with that in mind, if we take the time, just invest in that spiritual aspect of ourselves. And I'm not talking about joining a church, or I'm talking about that spirit that's within us that might be wounded, that might be ignored, that might be just bruised in any way, and we're just not even going to go there. That maybe this year is the year that we make that step towards that climbing that mountaintop, and include us as a whole body, the spirit, the mind, and the body. So I want to thank you ladies for everything that you're doing, and I'm looking forward to seeing you soon as you guys are out there helping others heal in Florida. I don't know, is this something that people can join your class on the
Yeah, that's to become a certified lymphatic practitioner. The mastermind social is open to the public and to any healthcare professionals that want to come in and kind of learn a little bit about functional medicine and experience it. So we are going to have some experientials there as well. So that's on the Eventbrite. It's business mastermind or mastermind business at the Evo Love Center in Tampa, Florida. And that's Friday night from 6 to 9:30.
And that's the 6 to 9:30. Yes, we will be there. We will be there. I'm looking forward to this.
To see you.
I'm so excited about this. But this conversation to be continued. I'm really excited that we have that the universe has put us together so that we can learn from each other, and let our better be better.
Absolutely.
I like that. Let our
Me
better be
too.
better. So
It's
I want to
great.
encourage all of you to share this video. Please follow us. Dr. Gramith can be found at Right Way Healing and Wellness, and Dr. Schrader can be found at Soul Tree Transformation and recallhealingusa.com. You know what? If you go to my blog, Recall Healing USA is what I highlighted.
Yes.
But if people want to get to know you as a practitioner, they go to Soul Tree Transformations.com.
Yes.
So thank you so much, ladies, for everything that you're doing to make clarity in 2020 happen.
Yay.
Okay, so we're gonna, after getting it being so hard to get onto Facebook, we're gonna say goodbye to all of you. So thank you so much, you teachers' pets, for watching today, and I look forward to tomorrow. We're gonna have Marissa. We're gonna have Marissa Peer in the classroom. This is this is, like I said, part of the spiritual aspect that we are going to be looking at the spirit and the mind so that our body will have permission to heal. So we'll see each other tomorrow at 5 o'clock. So take care. Bye. Say bye on YouTube too.
Bye, YouTube.